We are now realizing as Africa that our indigenous animals were the very best for food security and for our own environment.
It is very difficult to delink a pasture race from livestock.
In Kenya, it will be very difficult to find a pure red Maasai.
What you cannot measure, you cannot manage. We must start measuring.
In Africa, indigenous livestock plays an integral part in the livelihoods of majority of the rural population. They contribute to nutritional security by providing meat, milk, eggs, and other important farm inputs such as drought power and manure that are used to sustain a crop production for food and feed.
The indigenous animal genetic resources also are a source of manure. Most of the farmers in East Africa cannot afford fertilizer and therefore rely heavily on manure as a way of inputs in their agricultural production.
Indigenous breeds are well adapted, for example, to the production environment, especially with the climate change effects, where there's a drought, limited feed, diseases. These can survive, so it's a sustainable production system using the indigenous animals. They also tolerate heat, so in terms of global warming, indigenous animals are a potential solution.
Majority of these indigenous species contain tremendous genetic variations arising from natural selection for adaptation to different environments and to an extent from human intervention through artificial selection for specialized breeding. This diversity is essential for food security and provide the flexibility needed to adapt to the ever-changing environmental conditions.
The sustainable utilization and conservation of African livestock breeds is essential if animal production is to respond positively to challenges such as population growth, urbanization, and climate change. The development of the African indigenous livestock breeds is therefore a priority for Africa. Livestock production is an important component of many African economies and contributes 30 to 50% to the agricultural GDP. Indeed, African indigenous livestock breeds are essential for food security in Africa and contribute to the livelihoods of hundreds of millions of people.
These indigenous breeds are also important to agriculture because they are adapted to harsh local conditions, contain unique genetic materials that can be used for breeding programs, and are often a bastion for poor households because they are easier to keep than exotic breeds.
In the arid and semi-arid region, it's not possible for you to keep an exotic animal like a Frisian because it cannot withstand the high temperatures. But the indigenous livestock that are kept there, which are the local sheep and the local goat and the local cattle, they are adapted to that environment and therefore they're able to utilize that resource.
The red Maasai is one of the animals kept by the Ma community. Ma community includes Samburu, Maasai, Laikipia, and these people have kept this animal for centuries. Okay, until recently, scientists used to think this is a small animal and it may not have a value, but with research, they have realized that this animal has resistance against worms. And this resistance is not just environmental, it's actually genetic. It's one of the few animals in the world that have a genes that makes it be resistant to worms.
Indigenous animals are actually quite superior to the exotic ones because they can survive the harsh conditions. They can survive where feed is limited. They can survive where there's disease. which the exotic breeds might not be able to do.
You can hardly accelerate the growth of borans. So you cannot speed up like what you normally do with other breeds. These ones take their time, and they take their time to mature, and they mature in that short time, and they give very good quality meat. When I say good quality meat, I mean soft, well marbled, and very, very tasty.
The size of the animal, when we talk about the slaughterhouse, only the indigenous species is able to give that.
The taste of their meat is different from the exotic breeds.
In a world threatened by climate change, breeds that are resistant to drought, extreme heat, or tropical diseases are of major potential importance. Many of the